Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to solve a problem of Leetcode called merge intervals. So let's go through the problem. So given an array of intervals where intervals I is start I and end of I, merge all overlapping intervals and return an array of non-overlapping intervals that cover all the intervals in the input. Okay, so we are given an array of array like vector of vector, and each internal vector has two elements in it, and one element represents the start time and the other element represents the end time. So we have to look over these intervals and see if any of the interval is overlapping in this, and if it is overlapping we need to merge those intervals basically. So in this example, 1 3 2 6 8 10 15 and 18. So 1 is the start time, 3 is the end time, 2 is the start time and 6 is the end time, right? So this basically interval is starting before the end time of this interval. So 2 is less than 3, which means this interval is getting started even before the previous interval was ended. So we can club these two intervals into a single interval, which is 1,6, and the other two intervals are non-overlapping, so we keep them as it is. So finally we have to return this new vector of vector by basically removing the one which is an overlapping one, right? So I have pasted this solution over here. Yeah, so this is the example we are going to consider: 1 3 2 6 8 10 15 and 18. So if we go via like how the intuition for this algorithm will come, right? So if we represent this intervals on a number line, so 1 comes over here, so like 1 is the start time and 3 is the end time. So this interval is over. Now we come to 2 and 6. So this was one interval, 1,3. There is another interval called 2 and 6, which is starting at 2 and ending at 6. So this is another interval. So here the overlapping part is 2,3, right? So these two intervals are overlapping with each other. So we need to merge those. How are we going to do that? Like we will take the starting time of the first one and the ending time for this one. So 1,6. So this will be the merged interval after that. Now we go to 8 and 10. It is starting from 8 and ending at 8, 10. So this is the interval. These two intervals have no relation to each other, so we keep 8, 10 as it is. Now comes 15 and 18. So here as well there is no overlapping, so we keep 15 and 18 as it is. So finally the answer we have to return is 1,6, 8 and 10, and 15 and 18, right? So how are we going to identify whether these any two intervals are overlapping, right? So the first intuition that comes to us is that in the input only, the order of the elements should be such that they are already sorted based on their starting times, so that we can be very sure that the element coming later would have a start time greater than or equal to the element prior to that, right? So here as we can see, luckily the elements were already sorted, like 1 is less than 2, 2 is less than 8, 8 is less than 15. So we are very much sure that the next element that we are currently looking at, right? So suppose we are at 8, 10. So we can be sure that the starting time of this particular interval would be less than the starting time of the previous one, right? So we need to sort this vector of vector based on the first element as a first step, right? After that what we need to do is we need to do a couple of checks. So the check we need to do over here is so if I go over the algorithm as well, so like we need to initialize two variables, j and I. J is would be an would keep a track of like what element till what element I have to consider the elements. So j would be initialized to 0 and I would be initialized to 1. So I variable is used to iterate over this array. I will write the code for this as well simultaneously so that I can explain much better. So first step what we need to do over here is we need to sort this vector of vector based on their first element. So let's remove this intervals variable with v. I've replaced this intervals with b so that it's easier to write. I'm sorting this vector based on their first element. So I'm directly writing this as the particular element in this vector has two elements, right? So if I write this, it will automatically sort the element based on the starting time. So suppose if we had a vector of three elements, 1, 2 and 3, now this element 4, 6 and 2, like this. Now we need to sort this vector based on their first element. Even then I can write simply this, because by default it will sort this vector based on this first element. But if I want to sort this vector of vectors based on their second element or any other element, I need to write a comparator function by passing it inside this sort function, and I need to specifically define that comparator function. So coming back, I have sorted this vector based on their first element, and now I will be defining two variables I and j, and j I am initializing to the first element of this array, to 0, and the variable I would be used to iterate over the array, and I will start iterating over the array from the first element. This I'm going to do till the size of the array. Yeah, so at a particular point, so j was here, j is here, I is here, right? So at this point what I need to do here is I need to compare the ending time of j, like this element with this element, right? So I will do right away this one. If j of this second element, if v of j and 1, the second element, if it is greater than or equal to the first element of the ith element, right? This one, if the ending time of the j element is greater than the starting time of the ith element, that's what I'm doing here, I of 0, it means the intervals are overlapping, right? That's what we have seen over here. So in that case, what I need to do is I need to update, like I have to just keep any, like one of these elements, right? Because I need to merge these. So what I will do is I will keep the jth element and I will kind of ignore this ith element. But while I am ignoring this ith element, I need to extract some information out of that, right? So what I will do is I will update this jth element. Let me write v of j and 1. So the ending time of this 3 would be updated based on one condition. It would be maximum value of v of j 1 and v of I comma 1. I will explain why it is like that. So in this case, as we can see, we compared 3 and 2 in this if condition. 3 is greater than 2, so it means they are overlapping. So I need to update this 3 value. So what should be the new value of this jth second element? It should be the maximum of this 3 and this 6, right? So it would be 6. So this j value would be updated as 1,6. Why are we doing the maximum of this 3 and this 6? Because let's take another example in which it is 1,10 and 2,5, right? So in this j is over here, I is over here, so 10 is greater than 2, which means these intervals are overlapping. But when we are creating that final merged interval, right, so it should be the maximum of this value and this value, so it will be 1,10. But if we wouldn't have compared, then our merged interval would have become 1,5, which is not correct, right? So this is wrong. We need to compare this 10 and 5. So that's what we are doing in this if condition. And if it is not the case, it means the intervals are not overlapping. We will jump to the next element. So now, like, these intervals are overlapping, so this if condition was valid, the j remains as it is. Now we come to this I, right? So now we compare 6 and 8 for this if condition. 6 is less than 8, so means these two intervals are not overlapping. 2,6 remain as it is over here, 8,10 remains as it is, right? We are currently at this I. Let's remove this. So we are comparing these two elements, 6 and 8, right? 6 is less than 8, so these two intervals are not overlapping. So we need to consider this interval as a whole, right? So where do I place this interval? I need to place this interval to the next position of j. So currently j is at this index. So I will first update j, bring j here, and I will move this ith element to here, like this whole complete element to here. So what I will do is I will update j first, and I will update this jth index with the ith one. So v of j0 would be equal to v of I0, v of j1 would be v of I1, right? So basically why I'm doing this, just to keep a track, till that it means that till this point as of now, whatever value is present to the left of j or including j are non-overlapping intervals. That I have made sure. So after implementing this else condition, what will be my array? 1,6 would remain as it is. It would be 8,10. It would also be 8,10, and it is 15,18. And j was here, I was here, right? So now I move my I to here using the for loop. Now I compare these two elements, 10 and 15. 10 is less than 15, so these two intervals are also non-overlapping. So in that case also I will again increment j, bring it here, and copy this whole interval to the jth index in this else condition, right? So after this our array would become 1,6, 8,10, and here as well 15,18. j would be here, 15,18 here as well, j is here, sorry, I. And and again in the for loop, if I increment I reaches here, which is the end of the array, and I don't need to do anything. So it means that I need to consider only elements till the jth element, like all these elements after j can be ignored, right? So how do I do that? I will create a new vector altogether, vector of vector. The vector name is VEC. Let's keep it like that. And what will be the elements in this vector? It will be starting from v dot begin, and how many elements would be there? V dot begin. How many units? So like the first element in this, like in the parameters here is like from where we are going to start, and the second element is what is the size of that basically vector. So v dot begin plus j plus 1. Why are we doing j plus 1? Because here the j value would be 2, because this is the 0th index, this is the first index, this is the second index. Your j value is 2, but the number of values is 3, so we have to do j plus 1. That's why I am doing v dot begin plus j plus 1. After doing that, I can return vec, right? If I run this code, it looks fine. If I submit it, this is also fine. Runtime and memory usage both are perfectly fine. So here, if we talk about complexity, what is the complexity of this algo? So we are iterating over this array only once, but so time complexity for iterating over the array would be O of n. But in this we are sorting this vector, right? So the sorting, if we internally uses merge sort, so it would be n log n. Right, so overall the time complexity would come out to be n log n only. Now what is the space complexity? So I'm using an extra space here over here by creating a new vector. So if all the intervals are non-overlapping, so in the worst case the space complexity would be O of n. N is the size of the array. This is the time and space complexity for this algo. Alright, I guess this is pretty much the solution, and yeah, I guess we can end it now. And if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe it. And if you have any comments, please do ask in the comment section. And I will see you next time with the solution of another problem. See you next time. Thank you.